wins and learns. I
Yeah.
know sometimes things feel like mistakes and failures and but it's like at the end of the day, even if you made an investment in something, and trust me, I have totally made investments in programs and coaches where I look back and I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't ideal, but I learned. And the beautiful thing about podcast guesting is that you have all the content and that content doesn't go away. You can always go back and repurpose and reuse and re-promote podcast appearances. So I do think it's the investment that there's very little downside.
Welcome to the Andrea Engstrom Show for bold women in business. We are passionate about helping you break through to your next level of abundance, success, and freedom so that you can create the life you desire and inspire others to do the same. I'm your host, Andrea Engstrom, and on today, I am so excited to introduce you to my new business bestie and my coach, Jessica Rhodes. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Well, you all are in for a treat. Jessica is the founder and CEO of a multi seven figure business, Interview Connections. And over the past 13 years almost, Jessica has helped thousands of entrepreneurs learn to leverage podcast guesting as a strategy for growth and has booked more than 50,000 podcast guest appearances for her clients. Jessica, congratulations on an amazing business that you've built.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, today I want to talk about how you use podcast guesting as a strategy for lead generation, because I think sometimes we don't always know all the ways that podcast guesting or being on someone's podcast can actually result in getting clients. Or like, it's nice that a lot of people know your name and can hear about you, but how do we actually turn that into a profitable strategy that is worth people investing the time and the resources and even hiring you to help them to get more podcasts booked?
Yeah. So, number one, your business has to be ready to be able to use a strategy like podcast guesting to convert, because the things that you need to have in place are number one. And I know you ask your clients the same thing. What are your goals
Yep.
for whatever? Where do you want to be in a year from now? I always ask people on that first discovery call, what are your goals? Where do you want to be in 12 months and 6 months? What's important to you right now? Because podcast guesting is a long game. It is a long-term strategy. Same thing with having your own podcast. This is a long-term brand building strategy. It's not a short-term cash grab.
Mm. Right.
So definitely want to chat through how you turn podcast guesting into paying clients. But I want to start there because I am never somebody to say, this is how you can get clients like quick. There's no overnight success. There's no silver bullet to
Yeah.
success. I want to just set that context of like knowing, where you want to go, because also knowing what your goal is for podcast guesting will then determine things like what are the right types of podcasts to be a guest on, and what are the topics that would be best for you to talk about on podcasts. Because podcast guesting is like a recipe, right? The metaphor that I've used is that if you're baking cookies, let's just make it real basic. You're making chocolate chip cookies. Cookies are objectively amazing. Okay. They
Yeah.
are good. But if you forget the salt or the baking soda or the sugar, God forbid, they're not going to be good. And so that's what I see people do with podcast guesting is they will miss an ingredient and they will say this strategy didn't work. It's not
Mhm.
that the strategy didn't work, it is that there wasn't an ingredient that was missing. And there are a lot of ingredients that contribute to podcast guesting being a predictable client acquisition strategy. So let's talk about some of those ingredients.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
tell us what are some of the common mistakes that you see people making when
Yeah.
they're missing an ingredient?
So I would say it starts with let's start with the interview topics, like
Yeah.
what they're being interviewed about. You have to know your ideal client and you have to know them so well so that you understand what they want to learn about. What are they Googling at 3 in the morning when they're stressed and they're trying to solve a problem, right? What do they want to learn about when they see the title of a podcast episode, what do they hit play on and what do they say? I'll skip this one. This one doesn't
Mhm.
intrigue me. You have to know what your audience wants to learn about, because if you are being interviewed about topics that are, I'll skip this one, you're losing people.
Mhm.
You have to know what your audience struggles with. What are their pain points? What are their challenges? Where do they want to go? To the point where even when you write your topics on your one sheet in a way that your audience, the listeners, the host, they feel like you're in their head. That is effective copywriting. When you can write and speak to something in a way where your audience is like, "Oh my god, it's like you're reading my mind." And I'll give you an example of one. So for me, one of my most successful ads on Instagram and Facebook is a video where I would say, you might have thought about starting a podcast, but have you considered being a guest instead? And people are like, "Oh my god, I did think about starting a podcast. Oh my god, I haven't thought about being a guest. Oh my god, tell me more." Like that
Yeah.
literally converted so many leads into my masterclass, onto my list, into clients, because I knew what my ideal client is thinking about starting a podcast. But then when I
Yep.
tell them about being a guest, they're like, "Tell me more." So know what your audience is thinking and then create topics that make them go, "How did you know I was thinking that?" I'll start there and see if you have any comments on that.
That's so good. That's so good. And I love that you're saying this because when I start working with a brand new coach and she's trying to get her legs under her and figure out, what her coaching program should be about, one of the very first things I encourage her to do is to do market research. I'm like, I want you, now that you know what your general direction is, I want you to call 5 to 10 people that represent your ideal target audience and listen to the words they use when they talk about their biggest desires and their greatest challenges. Because we want, when you create a program, we want it to feel like exactly what she wants. When you create marketing messages, we want it to sound like you're in her living room at 1 in the morning and you know what's going on, right? That's so good.
Exactly. Yeah, I tell people the same thing, that, do that market research. When we work with a client and we write their topics and their bio for their one sheet, we ask them, "Do you have testimonials from clients that we can read?" Because I want to know what your clients are saying about you. I want to go all the way to the end game after they've hired you, after they've worked with you, after they've seen success. What are they saying? And then let's put that in the marketing messaging, which is your podcast guest topics. So speak the language that your audience is thinking and Googling and saying, and that will make it easier to get booked on the right podcast and then be set up to talk about the things that your ideal clients are looking for information about. Also, have some stories
Mhm.
prepared to talk about, because stories are what bring your interviews to life, and it's what will create an emotional connection between you and your audience. People are up in their head, with like, here's how to do things, and you definitely want to have value. For sure. You've got to have value. You want to have some actionable steps and takeaways. But if there are no stories, people are up in their head and they don't make buying decisions all in their head. They do have to feel an emotional pull and connection. And so that's why telling stories is a really important ingredient in the strategy, because some people will say, "Well, I've done podcast interviews. I give so much value. I'm on the right shows, all this stuff." And then I listen and it's just all up in their head. And I've seen
Yeah.
posts where people kind of talk about how, value content is dead. Obviously, everyone's got to be dramatic on social media. It's dead. But I actually think there's something to be said of that. People are just going to ChatGPT. They can get the information, but what
Mhm.
they really yearn for is an emotional connection. And that's why I am leaning into storytelling more than I ever have before, is because people will just lock on and stick to you like glue. Quoting my
Mhm.
dad. My dad wrote a book called Stick Like Glue. That was his first
Oh,
business book.
cool.
Stick like glue, customer attention, but they really will stick to you like glue when they have that emotional tie. So
Yeah.
tell stories in addition to giving valuable information about what your future clients want to learn about.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that we talk a lot about in my groups is creating a story bank. This
Oh, I
idea.
love that.
Yeah, so it's like it's whether it's a note on your phone or like a notebook that you go back to, but it's like story, like you wanna know your origin story, we wanna know like a story about a moment, something that happened, a common experience, something like that. Also metaphors, right?
Yep.
So if you can explain something complex in a really simple way using a metaphor, people can lock into that and it opens something up in their brain. And so I feel like I'm teeing up my clients to be your clients because I feel like we're preparing people to be a really good podcast guest and doing that activity.
Yeah, and that's why I had you on my show. For everyone listening, we're doing kind of a pod swap where Andrea
Yeah.
was a guest on my podcast because I have coaches that listen to my podcast that would be great clients for her. And
Yeah.
I know that her audience would be great clients of Interview Connection. So that's another reason you should be a podcast guest, is because it gives you this way to build relationships with people who would be ideal referral partners.
Yeah.
Having a host that interviews you refer business to you is one of the number one ways to get clients from podcast guesting. That is the most I've had over 1,000 clients in almost 13 years in business. And the most common thing that I hear from my clients who have seen a return on investment is the host became a client.
Hmm.
Andrea is my client, by the way. The host referred to me. The host said, "Hey," they introduced me. The host booked me for a speaking opportunity. So, yes, have topics, have stories. Like, we're going to talk a little bit more about, how to convert people from the audience, but use podcast guesting as a way to build your network of, potential clients and referral partners.
I love it. So, what are some other, besides the host becoming your client?
Yeah.
What are some other keys to really leveraging the opportunity if you do get booked as a guest on a podcast? How can you make sure that you're actually doing everything that you can to make the most of that opportunity?
Yeah. So really look at this as an opportunity to promote yourself as an authority to your audience even before the interview takes place. So my client Christina Woods is an empowerment coach, and like when she first signed up with us like 4 years ago, we said, okay, go post that you're getting booked. The interviews hadn't even been recorded yet, like super, super early on and new, but she posted on her Facebook, I was just booked for a podcast interview. And somebody saw that, sent it to a friend who was looking for a speaker for their retreat. And they said, hey, this person, Christina, she's getting booked on podcasts. Maybe she would be a good speaker. They hired Christina as a speaker for their retreat. She got a bunch of clients from the retreat. So just talking about the fact that you're getting on podcasts to your existing audience. This is something we overlook all the time. We think, I need more leads. I need more leads. I'm going out and finding leads elsewhere. You have future clients already following you. So don't forget about them.
Mhm.
Talk to your current audience about what you're doing, about getting booked. And then when you're on the show at the end of the episode, this is a big missed opportunity, is have an effective and thought through call to action. Where are you sending the listeners to get them on a journey to working with you? And that's not pitching a paid offer, right? They just met you.
Right.
You're on like an initial coffee date when they hear you on a podcast. So you don't want to just start selling something right away, but you want to tell the audience how they can get in touch with you, how they can get more value from you, how they can join your email list. And, we can like give some tips on maybe some calls to action that would be effective. But you don't just be like, oh, go Google me online. You want to guide those listeners to the best next step to getting in touch with you.
Yeah. What are some examples of effective best next steps?
Yeah. So I would say if you have built a website, a high converting website, and if you're early on in business, maybe you're like, what's that? I don't I have a website, but I don't know if it converts well. So, but if you are at the point where you're like, I know my website converts predictably, like I know 10% of every, whatever the percentage is, you're like, if I get people to my website, I know they'll do this thing. Just drive traffic to the place where you know it will convert predictably. So that's number one. Don't over engineer things, don't reinvent the wheel. If you have a predictable conversion rate on your website, send them there.
Mhm.
Number two, if you have a book, my client and my coach Kevin, he's promoting his book right now, Beyond Blind Blaming. He just got number one bestseller in entrepreneurship. He's super pumped about that. Like he just wants people to buy his book because when they get his book, they read it, they'll want to work with him. So we were just talking today. He's going to send them to Amazon. So that's his strategy, is getting people to buy his book, and it's thought through, it's intentional, it's strategic. You
Mhm.
can also have a lead magnet. So we have clients that will create a lead magnet where it's a quiz or a special
Mm.
report or free gift. Again, something that is free, it's a gift, it's valuable, it connects to what you talked about on the podcast. So it's not just some other random thing, but it is intentional and people will want it after they hear you on the podcast. You send them to a landing page that will easily convert them onto your list in exchange for that gift.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Um, Talk to us about like what is good etiquette if you are a guest on somebody's podcast? What are some things that you should be sure to do to make sure that they refer you or that they would have you back
Yeah.
again? You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. Okay. So good etiquette as a podcast guest. Number one, your communication. Be communicative, respond. Like when you first get booked on the show, respond to the host, get connected with them on social media, listen to an episode of their show, rate and review it honestly. Like these are kind of just going the extra mile, but at the same time, bare minimum because most people don't do any of this. you know, share about their show, share that you're going to be a guest, tag them, a simple Instagram story of like, hey, I'm going to be a guest on this show, tag the host, and then promote the episode. So I see because I have an interview based podcast, I look at the numbers and sometimes it's dependent. Like I have certain topics or titles of the episode that I'm like, oh, clearly more people are interested in that versus this topic. But I can also tell if a guest shares the episode, there's like more downloads on that episode. So share your interviews on other people's podcasts with your audience because you'll have more people listening to you. And it also gives your audience a way to hear you speak in a different context than them just speaking directly to you on their own podcast or something like that. So share the episode and then stay in touch with the podcast host. Maybe there's a way that you can feature them on your platform. Like I do pod swaps where I'll bring guests, the host onto my podcast. If you don't
Mhm.
have a podcast, you could do a joint Facebook Live. Like I'm doing kind of a collaboration with a coach who, she's going to do a training for my clients. I'll tell you about that. I'll be announcing that soon. She's going to do a great training and then she's going to interview me on her Facebook profile because that's where her
Yeah.
audience is. So there's different ways that you can collab to get visibility to each other's audiences.
I love that. I love that. I think, I'm calling back to a time where I had Dan Martell as a guest on my podcast one time when I was doing this joint podcast, and he was the best guest. I
Yeah.
mean, he was so genuine and was like, if there is anything I can do for you, you reach out to me. I was like, dude, you're amazing. And he had his book coming out, Buy Back Your Time, and he's like exploded since then. But like the authenticity that he showed up in and just like a open door kind of like if
Yeah.
there's anything I can do for you, I'm here for it. Like and
Yeah.
I thought he had some of the best guest etiquette for sure. Just
I think it's an
amazing.
energetic thing too,
Yeah.
which is kind of hard to put your finger on it. It's hard to teach, but there's some people that there's just again, it's like I don't know how to describe it or teach it, but when you have just a really authentic, clean energy
Mhm.
and you're chit-chatting in the green room after the show, that's kind of how I know it's a really great connection if the host and I or the guest and I, whichever side of the mic I'm on, if we are just like chit-chatting even when we're not recording.
Yeah.
Um, and some of that, it's just got to be the right fit, because like sometimes energies just click and other times everyone does the right things, but it's just like, okay, not a love connection. I would say that not everyone's going to be a love connection. That's okay. Do your best. But when it really hits and there's this great alignment, like, you know, nurture that. Don't let it fade away.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think, he probably I know he had somebody booking for him,
Mhm.
but they did some really special things too, like sent us like the ebook, the e-version of his book, in advance. I was so thankful because I was like, I didn't have time to order it or get it. I didn't have a store I could go to just like buy it. So he sent
Yeah.
it to us and had some pre-prepped questions and stuff like that. Do you recommend that you prep questions for someone that is going to have you as a guest on their podcast?
Yes, I'm so glad that you brought that up because sometimes I'm like, it feels so obvious to me because I talk about it a lot, but I'm like, thank you for teeing me up to say that. Yes, give hosts suggested questions. This is why we create a podcast one sheet for our clients. I invented the podcast one sheet in 2013 when my dad was my first client. And I was booking him on podcasts. And when I was pitching him to podcast hosts, they all needed the same thing. They needed a bio so they can easily introduce them to the show. They needed some suggested topics so they could kind of choose which one was the best fit for their audience. And they needed some suggested interview questions. So,
Yeah.
yes, you want to have some suggested questions. Some hosts will be less, more conversational, and other hosts they'll want to have some questions. But yes, make the host's job as easy as possible to make you look good.
Yeah, I love that. So, and one of the things that I love about what you do is that you're not just a booking service. Like, like you, I mean, and everybody listening to this can tell this. This is like you're truly a coach. Like
Yeah.
you're walking us through step by step, like how to not just make the most of it, but don't blow it. Like
Don't blow it.
don't blow it. You've got a big opportunity here. Don't blow it. And I think
Yeah.
so many of us like just want to wing it, or we want to come super prepared, but we're not really sure how to prepare. And
Yeah.
so I love what you do. So tell us about who is a really good fit to be ready for a booking service coach on this
Mhm.
topic. Like who would be an ideal referral for you?
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, because that's something that we, continue to lean more into, is that we're not just a podcast booking service. There's plenty of people that will just book you on podcasts, they'll just do that, but we're really a coach growth company. We help coaches grow their business. And the primary vehicle we do that through is by getting them in front of audiences as a podcast guest, where they can be sharing their story, building relationships with podcast hosts, and attracting leads and clients to their business. And we also coach them on how to leverage this visibility and these opportunities. So the most ideal coaches for us are those that have an established coaching business, typically at least $5,000 a month in reoccurring revenue, because podcast guesting is a long game. If somebody's just getting started, they're like, maybe they've got a couple clients, but they make like $1,000 a month in their coaching business. Like, you're not quite ready for long-term brand building like podcast guesting. So somebody that is, has an established coaching business, they know their ideal client, right? They know who they need to speak to. They know what their ideal client's pain points are, so they know what topics they need to talk about in order to attract their ideal clients, and they have a predictable way to convert leads into clients. And that could be as simple as, I know if I get on the phone with somebody who heard me speak, I'll sign them up. So you don't have to have a whole launch strategy in place. If you're not there yet, that's okay. We have so many coaches that will get on podcasts, invite people to book a call, and they predictably sign people up. And
Yeah,
then we have coaches that are like my client Kevin, he's like, if I know if they go to Amazon, they get my book, they're going to read the book, then they're going to come to a webinar. Like, it could be as in
amazing.
depth
Yeah,
as that. But, established, you've got an online presence where when somebody converts, there's a predictable percentage of them that will convert into a lead and into a client.
I love it. And I love how honest you are about we're not for everyone. That this
Yes.
is not a magic silver bullet strategy. It is a long play. And I think that that's super important for people to understand that that are wanting to grow their business. But if you're in a place where it has to work like this minute, this month, like know what this is and know what it isn't. And
Right.
and so when you share things like that, it makes me trust you more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because ultimately, like, I've been in business long enough to know and to have had the experiences of signing up clients who weren't the right fit. And it doesn't help anyone, the wrong client in the wrong program. Nobody's happy, right? It's a waste of time and money for everyone. They walk away unhappy, you walk away drained. So thank you for asking me this question. And it's something I try to really be visible about, is because people are like, "Oh, I wanna be on podcasts." I'm like, "Yeah, I could book you on podcasts, but we're gonna get 3 months down the road, you're gonna have spent thousands of dollars, and then you're gonna be pissed off that you didn't see any sales, when I coulda told you that 3 months ago you weren't gonna see any sales because of all these other reasons." So,
yeah.
it is important to be at the point where you are ready for this strategy in order to make an investment in a company like ours that can help you take things to the next level.
Yeah, I love that. When I was considering hiring you as my coach and in our as my agency, I went through a thought process that, because I you and I talked like 13 months ago. I got 3 texts a week from your every sequence, and I appreciate it so much. I never unsubscribed because I knew I was gonna work with you. And but when I was re-engaging and I listened to a podcast that you were on, and I asked myself like three questions. Okay. So this is how I came to the decision. So number one, I said, what's my break even? And I was like, if I work with her for 12 months, if I just get, and she books 36 podcasts for me, if I get three clients, that's a break even. That's amazing. There's no way that I'm not going to be able to convert that because I know my conversion rate. Like I know what happens when I get in front of the right people. So that was my first one. My second question to myself was like, what's the best possible scenario? I was like, what if it really works? Like what if instead of just 3 clients, I got 36 new clients from, so, like we nail this thing and I get really good at it and you coach me, and like best possible scenario is it could really explode my business. That would be amazing. And then worst case scenario, I learn a lot and I get really good at being on podcasts and being interviewed, and I learn a lot. Also a good investment, right? And so even in my worst case scenario, I was like, there's no lose-lose here. There's either a deal or there's data. And the data is going to be really helpful for me as well in growing my business. And so I'm confident that we're going to be on the other side of that. But I just wanted to share, like, I ran through my head, like, why am I waiting? Why was I waiting so long to do this? There's not a lose in this
Mhm.
scenario, right?
I'm totally gonna clip that part of the episode and send that to so many people because that is the way to think about it. You do what's the best case scenario? What's the break even? And I'm all about wins and learns. Wins and learns. I
Yeah.
know sometimes things feel like mistakes and failures and but it's like at the end of the day, even if you made an investment in something, and trust me, I have totally made investments in programs and coaches where I look back and I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't ideal, but I learned even I did get value from all of them in some way. Maybe it didn't feel like it reflected what I paid, but guess what? I'll never do it again. I'll right? Like there's
Yeah.
always a learn. And the beautiful thing about podcast guesting is that you have all the content. So it's like
Mhm.
guaranteed you have all this content of you speaking, you have all these relationships, and that content doesn't go away on like a paid ad that gets turned off when you're done paying for it. You can always go back and repurpose and reuse and re-promote podcast appearances. So I do think it's the investment that there's very little downside.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that ran through my head is like, if I tried to hire someone in-house to do this for me, I would probably pay them more than I would pay an expert
Right.
who, like, so for me, it was like the trial and error and the time wasted on trying to train someone or find someone that could figure this out for me or that even had some experience. I'd probably pay them. Like the value is undeniable. And
Yeah.
I just want people to hear that well. Like I
Thank
was,
you.
yeah, yeah. Like and the model that you provide and like how you've shifted things makes it feel like
Mhm.
there's no risk. I mean, like you'd be crazy not to. So I hope if you're listening to this that you take a next step with Jessica. So Jessica, if somebody does want to take a next step with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch is to go to interviewconnections.com/consult. Interviewconnections.com/consult. That'll get you onto my calendar where we can have a discovery call. No pressure to dive deeper and actually see if this is the right next step for your business and, how we might be able to help.
Yeah, and I just want to affirm to you that like when you get on a call with Jessica, it's truly no pressure. Like you and I had a great conversation. I felt a connection with you that like carried through for months.
Yeah.
It was like I kept thinking about you. I was like, man, I want to work with her.
Oh.
Man, what am I doing? Not moving forward faster. But I just want to reiterate, if you're listening to this, like grab a spot on her calendar. You'll probably meet somebody really cool that you're gonna vibe with, and or you're going to learn something really good. Like there's value either
Yeah.
way. So, okay. So on this podcast, we like to challenge our listeners to do something to take bold action. So, Jessica, what is one thing you would challenge our listeners to do this week to take bold action?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I'm going to say something that's just top of mind for me. It's a little bit different than what we've talked about in this episode, but I think a lot of coaches avoid this. And so I'm going to really encourage them to do it is to look at your numbers and like look at all of the numbers in your business. This is like the theme of my business life right now, whether that's your P&L, getting that onto a spreadsheet in a way that you can really comprehend what's going on in your business, going into your credit card statement for your business and seeing what softwares are you paying for that maybe you don't need,
Mhm.
looking at how much revenue is coming in. Like I want you to spend an hour looking at your numbers because that is going to give you the clarity. Like the way Andrea just routed off, like, okay, if I get this many clients, like that's because she knows her numbers and she
Yeah.
knows her conversion strategy. And I do think that's a bold thing to do because, our numbers can be scary sometimes, but they're less scary when you actually look at them. So that's what I would really challenge everyone to do is just get in reality about what your numbers are telling you and what's happening. And that reality is what will allow you to make informed decisions about your next steps in business.
I love that. And I feel like it's like we must be on the same wavelength because I booked a call with my bookkeeper for tomorrow afternoon to do like a full snapshot. And I meet with her every week. But and that's something not normal, right? Most people don't meet with their bookkeeper every single week. But for me, that's been a critical piece
Yeah.
in being able to make informed decisions and know what needs to change. And
Yeah.
for me to get really clear on highest value activities in my business and why that's really, really important. So I love that advice. Very, very
Yes.
sound.
Awesome.
Oh, you've dropped so many gems today. Jessica, thank you so much for taking time to chat today. And I'm super excited to be working with you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I can't wait to connect with your listeners. And this is just such a treat to connect with you today.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, sisters, if you heard this podcast and you thought of someone that you think should be a guest on a podcast, would you share this episode with her? And I would love for you to learn more about how to be a coach. If you are not yet a coach and you want to explore that, grab a spot in my upcoming workshop, 100K in 90 days at AndreaEngstrom.com. Well, till next time, I'm Andrea Engstrom here with Jessica Rhodes, the amazing, and we are your sisters in business, encouraging you to take action on your dreams. Show up to your life with power and authenticity. Be bold, be tenacious, and make it happen.